Hey everyone, welcome to Ajay and Nathan Discuss Movies, a show in which we discuss movies both old and new. Today we have a new movie out in theaters right now that may or may not be getting its money back in the box office. We do not know. But what is that movie title, Nathan?
That movie is Y2K, directed by Kyle Mooney.
And it's also written by Kyle Mooney as well.
Written by Kyle Mooney.
As well as one other person.
One other person, yes.
Hell yeah. And what is this movie about, Nathan?
Y2K follows two high school kids on New Year's Eve at a party in 1999. They're ready for everything to change in the new year. One of them has a big crush on a popular girl, and he's going to use this New Year's Eve party as an opportunity to hit on her. But things go awry because once midnight hits and it is the year 2000, Y2K hits. It was real, and all the machinery in the home comes to life, and now it is a robot apocalypse that these nerds and these kids have to survive.
And how did you feel about this movie, Nathan?
Disappointed is the word I will say right off the bat. It's not that I was incredibly hyped for this movie. I saw the trailers and I said, oh, that looks like it could be fun. That looks like it's cute. And then when I watch it, it was so close to being something like really good, but I feel as though the movie hooks you in and then kind of goes nowhere. And it was just kind of an underwhelming experience, I'll be honest. What were your thoughts?
I felt very similarly. I didn't hate the movie.
No.
I felt like the first act was amazing.
Yes.
I thought when
so
we
much
got
fun.
to know the characters, it was great. There was that sequence in which Rachel Zegler's character steals like 40s with
Oh,
her
yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
That entire scene was hilarious to me. But it gets to a point where we start to see these computers, and I feel like that by then that's where the film kind of lost me.
Yeah.
Because all the problem with the movie is that all the interesting characters die very quickly.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right.
And the fat comedic relief character,
Julian Dennison, I want to say his name because he is great in every movie I've ever seen him in. He's fantastic.
He's hilarious. He's captivating. That dance sequence he does at the party.
It's so fun.
I mean, nothing's funnier than a fat guy that dances. There's nothing funnier. Just talk to Spike about it. But we'll omit the name from the podcast, no worries. But overall, I mean, I felt very similarly to you. I mean, I thought for the first 30 minutes or so was really, really fun.
Yeah.
When it had this sort of super bad meets the mist kind of feel to it, I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere with it. But I feel like the overall execution of the ideas wasn't that great. And while there were humorous parts of the movie where I laughed out loud, it wasn't enough to make it thoroughly entertaining or enjoyable.
Yeah, no, it's just a weirdly kind of paced movie because like you said, that first act that sets everything up, sets up these kids, it's very much like a coming of age kind of story mixed with like an apocalypse horror kind of angle. And that first act, when things kind of pop off and the robots and all the machinery has come to life, that's a lot of fun. But then past that, again, like you said, we lose a bunch of the more interesting characters, and then a good chunk of the movie just kind of becomes them wandering around in the woods, which is so baffling to me. When I left the theater, you have an entire setup of the movie where it's technology has come to life in the early 2000s, late 90s in this suburban area. There's so much there to do, so many gags and jokes and fun little set pieces you could do with that, and then they wander off into the forest and just kind of hang out there waiting for any of the cool stuff to come and find them. And so it's like the movie is swimming. It's swimming in possibility, but it is never choosing a direction to go in. It's just kind of swimming around with all these cool things you could be doing, and then it ends.
And we're stuck with two main characters that are very uninteresting, to say the least.
Yeah, it's not like their performances are bad or anything. It's the kid, one of the kids from It, and then Rachel Zegler. And they're fine. They're fine with what they have, but they just aren't as interesting as everyone else in the movie who should have been there but wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, going back to the fat kid. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the name of it. We'll, drop in the
Julian Dennison.
Julian Dennison. I mean, to be honest with you, like, I feel like the entire film should have been about him.
I agree 100%. He is so funny and so
I thought they were
going to
go there. I thought they were going to kill Eli.
Yeah.
And let Julian Dennison's character go in and be the hero.
Or at the I guess this is kind of spoilery, I guess, but like not a lot happens in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have expected him to at least survive a little longer. Because
he is the comedic relief. Like, you need like that character.
You need
to
him
survive.
to add a little bit of spice to the experience, especially if we're not going to be doing a lot of the robot apocalypse like action or anything like that. We're not going to have any fun monsters or gags. If we're not going to have that, we need at least some characters to add a little bit of zest into the movie. But he dies at the very end of the first act. Him and the kid who tries to grind
that was the most hilarious thing ever.
Funniest scene
I
in the
died
movie.
laughing when he tried to grind the basketball pole. And he dies while Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit plays for like less than 2 seconds. I laughed so audibly, so loud in the theater that I felt bad about it.
It was so funny, but that is essentially where the movie kind of peaks.
Yeah.
And we never go back to anything like that. As I was watching it, I was thinking this is a lot like this is like a Joe Dante movie, like a Small Soldiers or Gremlins, where it's a suburban neighborhood and then something crazy happens and it's just an all-out kind of battle, but that never happens.
This felt like the most PG-13 rated R comedy I've ever seen.
It really does. It really does.
I was surprised when I saw the R rating for this movie because I was like,
Yeah.
there doesn't need to be an R rating for this movie at all.
Initially, when all the machinery comes to life and we're at the house party and people are dying in very ridiculous ways, there's the guy who gets his stuck in a blender.
By the way, those are the only 2 moments in the film where I like audibly laughed out loud.
Yeah, no.
And there were jokes here and there, but
there
it
were
wasn't
jokes here
like
and there that were
chuckle-worthy. Like Alicia
funny.
Silverstone smoking weed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they were trying to playing it off as like a humorous moment, but I wasn't like really into it.
The parents of the main kid are Tim Heidecker and Alicia Silverstone. I got so confused but also excited when Tim Heidecker
hilarious.
showed up. I'm like, oh my god.
You and her, and I raise a drink. If you drank, I'd raise a drink and toast. Because what you did was you took aim and fired at a mentality and a philosophy that I think is biggest threat to our country.
No. We didn't take aim at anything.
Since the Civil War.
They're just silly sketches.
When you saw Tim Heidecker at the end with the fake green screen, looking like he just did drugs or was on acid, I was like, this movie would be funny if you were on an acid trip. I was like, oh, by the end of this movie, I was like, oh, this is a movie that would be funny if you were on an acid trip.
When he's on that green screen getting assimilated into like the robot network, it looked exactly like a Tim and Eric sketch. It's like, oh, they brought him back to his roots. But I disagree that the movie would be fun on an acid trip because it's just too dry. Not a lot really happens. Again, that entire second act is them just hanging out in the woods, kind of doing nothing really. They're looking for an old mill or old factory because there's no technology there, and that's where they'll be safe. When they bring that up at the beginning of the movie, once the apocalypse starts, I'm thinking like, oh, that's our end goal. That's where the ending of the movie is going to happen. They have their destination, and the entire movie is going to be them trying to reach this sanctuary. But they get there incredibly quickly without much resistance, and then they're just there hanging out. Another robot does show up, but it's quickly dealt with, and we're just there hanging out with the stoners, which
And Fred Durst at the end of the movie.
Fred Durst does that like gave me a bit more energy to get through to the
Really?
end when Fred Durst shows up, just because that's so just the way they set him up, because they go to the video store and you just hear, "Were you followed?" Like, what's this? And then he removes the cloak, and like the skater punk girl is like, "Oh my god, that's Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit."
Yeah.
Gives this entire speech just like, I can't live without Limp Bizkit. It's like dumb like that is what makes the movie so fun and funny, but it is so sparse throughout the entire experience. It's like, I want more of that. I wanted Fred Durst fighting robots.
Yeah.
But we don't get that.
No. I mean, I think that the issue with the movie is that, like, it should have been labeled as an action-adventure comedy as opposed to a horror comedy, because there really aren't any, like, scary scenes or, like, jump scares. And I think that if they just went for a more action-adventure comedy route, it would have been a little bit more of a better movie.
I guess, but even then, there isn't much action or adventure.
That's the thing, is that
to
if they
it.
added more action and adventure,
Yeah.
I think it would have been better.
It felt like it didn't dedicate itself to one thing or the other, because a lot of it is focused on the classic coming of age story beats, like, he's a nerd who has to find his courage, otherwise he'll never be able to hook up with the girl he likes. And that stuff is so like paint by numbers. Like, you've seen this before in many other movies, and it's not like they go full into that or the sentimentality of it, and they also don't go into the full-blown imaginative adventure of it all. And so then we're just kind of stuck in this murky gray area of you're not dedicating yourself to one thing or the other, and it makes the entire experience feel incredibly aimless.
Yeah, aimless is a good word. I do think that eventually, over time, this movie will develop a cult following.
I think so, and I'm happy that it will.
But
I am.
I do think in terms of like Kyle Mooney's work, this is not his best movie that he's made. Brigsby Bear. Have you watched Brigsby Bear?
I love Brigsby Bear.
I'm
glad you brought it up.
He didn't direct it, but he did write it.
He did write and star, yeah.
And it was a pretty good movie for what it was.
It's a great movie, and it has everything that you would want. It's very weird, it's very quirky, but it's also incredibly funny and also incredibly endearing as well emotionally. And that's what Y2K is kind of missing. It's like, if they were gonna drop the legitimate coming of age emotional stuff and just focus on hilarity and hijinks, I'd be fine with that. But again, they don't choose one or the other and just kind of hang out. It's weird. I will say though, Kyle Mooney is very funny whenever he shows up in this movie.
He had like a YouTube comedy sketch troupe back in the day
yeah.
with him and Beck Bennett, and those sketches are still hilarious to this day.
Nice.
Do you know what the budget for this movie was?
What was the budget for this movie?
A little less than 15 million.
Less than 15? Okay.
It does not feel like a little less than 15 million movie. It feels like this was made on like a shoestring budget.
Yeah, 15 million, I guess, is it's a lot of money, but for a movie, that's a little on the low end.
I don't know. Like when
Kinda.
when you watch this movie, like I mean, well, a lot of people may think, oh, this looks like a Netflix movie. I kind of disagree with that. I think it looks like a Prime Video movie. You know, it's like something you dump on the streaming
It
service.
looks like a streaming movie, is what you're
like 2
saying.
a.m., 3
I can
a.m.
understand that.
You watch it. You're in your 2-star hotel. You know, you don't know what to do besides just look at the walls. So you're like, okay, what's better than this? What's a better alternative than looking at the walls? And this is your option.
Why Y2K?
Y2K. And I think that's kind of like a good summation of the movie. You know, is that it's better than looking at the walls for an hour and a half.
It is, yeah.
But having said all that, this is an hour and a half movie that feels like a 3.5 hour movie because the pacing is a lot off.
Yeah, no, nothing really happens. It really is just that first act occurs, it hooks you in, and then nothing happens really in the second act. The only things I can think of, at least that piqued my interest, were when Kyle Mooney's character kind of decides to fight the giant robot.
That was great.
That was incredibly fun. The editing in that is hilarious. He's got the devil sticks that he's trying to do, runs directly at the robot, gets decapitated.
Yeah.
So good, so funny. But I just keep going back to that first act that sets everything up so well. When we initially meet Kyle Mooney, there was a shot, just a single small thing that probably no one else would notice, but it's just so dumb. But he's like coming to the champagne room, which is the section of the video store where he gets high with these teenage boys, and just there's this quick little shot of him switching out his sandals for another pair of identical sandals, and I don't know why, but that just absolutely killed me. It was so dumb, but it's like that's the infuriating thing with this movie, is that there's so much that is so funny, but it is so few and far between a lot of the moments.
I mean, I mentioned this in the beginning, but it does feel like a Judd Apatow movie. Like that's not a derogatory statement. I don't want that to be like a derogatory thing, but at times it felt like a Judd Apatow movie where like the pacing was a little off.
Yeah,
the jokes weren't all that there, and I'm not talking about like Superbad. I mean, obviously that's like the mecca of what I would assume a Judd Apatow movie is.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm like, but like you know what I mean, like a little bit of a crappier Judd Apatow movie.
It feels loose, because a lot of those Judd Apatow movies have such thin narratives that only exist to get jokes out. But then as Judd Apatow went along, he just kind of got used to saying action and then letting people improv for like 30 minutes and then just cutting all that in, like, oh, this will be funny, we don't have a script, but it's fine, everyone's a professional improviser. And then you get movies that just feel like slogs to get through, and this isn't, Y2K isn't a slog, but it is a very slow moving movie, especially again after that first act, which is great and so much fun, that when it slows down to that glacial kind of pace, it's just daunting and just disappointing to see. It's, if I were a teacher and I were reading like an essay, it's like this essay would have like a very strong opening paragraph, and then the rest of it is just copy pasted from Wikipedia.
You know that meme of like someone like making a horse?
Yeah,
and the backside it looks amazing, and then the front it's just like a stick figure.
As it goes along, gets a little bit worse. That is essentially this movie. There's just you see,
there's a lot of potential with this movie.
There's a lot of potential. You see the trailers and you see the robots riding around in RC cars with gadgets. There's one that is just a drill that goes directly into a girl's head. That's so gnarly and so cool, but you never see anything like that in the movie again. Never any of these little gadgets. It's just you see one or two of those little gadgets, and then you see two guys in robot costumes, which are funny to look at, but they don't do much.
I was thinking, like, if this movie was released 20 years ago, like, it would be one of the highest grossing movies of the year. You know, you had all these taboo things at the time, like, you know, weed and marijuana and, like, you know, children getting it on and all that.
Yeah.
You know, like, with the success of Pineapple Express and, you know, Superbad, this would have easily cleared 100 million, but I feel like there was just a mismanagement on the marketing of this movie. Okay. And not just that, but just the movie in general was just not appealing enough for me to really get behind.
Yeah, no, it loses you very quickly, is what I saw. It's just sitting in that theater. I was the only person in my theater.
Oh, really?
By the way, yeah, no, this is 11 a.m. on a Monday. I can't expect the place to be packed, but yeah, no, everyone's too busy seeing Wicked. But just sitting there in the theater, it feels like a problem with a lot of movies I've seen, where there's no escalation where you have your first act, you have your inciting incident, your rising action, but you never reach the climax. You don't. It's just inciting incident, rising action, and then we just dip and the movie ends.
Yeah.
There's no escalation of the threat. There's no, we start with the party massacre and then we add a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until we get to the end of the movie. It's going to be this climactic thing where we kind of just throw all our chips on the board, but that doesn't happen. I will say the joke got me.
Really?
It did. Initially, when he hands his friend the just as he's dying, it's a very emotional moment. He's like, "Take this from me." He hands him a bloody Durex condom. That's very fun. And then at the end, where the AI is like, "You guys are," it echoes through his head. He's remembering pornography and everything else in the movie, and he pulls out the condom. And Rachel Zegler's reaction is just very funny. She's like, "Okay." She doesn't know what she's supposed to do with that. Again, little moments like that keep the movie from really descending into something that would be just incredibly hard to get through, but it makes it more infuriating because they had everything they needed to make this something really, really awesome. But you're this close. You were this close.
Yeah. And I think that's like one of the issues with the movie is that like you were close, but no cigar.
Exactly. So sad, so disappointing.
So sad
to see this happen.
And that's Y2K for you.
That's Y2K. Yeah, there's really not much to say about the movie beyond what we've touched upon because again, not a lot really happens in it. There's the rap kid.
Yeah.
He just kind of freestyle.
Oh, the rapping was horrendous in this movie. I was like, yo, spit 8 bars. We're going to take this thing to Mars, and we'll buy plenty of chocolate bars. I was like, you guys, like, I get it.
That's that elemental flow.
Yeah, that's that spiritual, lyrical miracle flow, dude. But, I mean, the rapping, I was like, when the guy died, I was like, good. I'm happy this rapper, Common the rapper, right?
Common? Is that the same as Common the actor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he rapped.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's both rapper and an actor.
Oh.
But it felt very much like that. Like back when woke was not a thing, like that was the guy that would be like, we gotta stop getting into consumerism. The capitalism plurge is ruining the minds, the mental. I'm like, I can't listen to this anymore. This is a little too much.
He should collaborate with Fred Durst.
Fred Durst, yeah. But overall, those are our thoughts. Let's wrap up our thoughts.
Let's wrap it up. It's not terrible by any means. It is, if you find it on streaming, I'd say give it a watch, but I'm not saying you have to rush out to the theater to see it because it is kind of a middling experience. A few funny, genuinely fun and funny moments can be found, but overall it is I must say I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I think if you're going to go for like a nice stoner comedy,
yeah,
I don't think you would go to this movie. There are better movies out there. Pineapple Express. That's the only stoner comedy I know, to be honest with you. I'm sure there were others.
Harold and Kumar go
Harold,
to White
yeah,
Castle.
Harold and Kumar. How can I not include that?
The 9,000 Cheech and Chong movies.
Yeah, I feel that. So
get really high and watch Gremlins.
There are better movies out there for all your stoner habits. But overall, it's not that great. The comedy was good at pockets of the movie, but not enough for me to be thoroughly entertained. So overall, that's Y2K for you.
That's Y2K.
And I think with that comes a wrap on the pod for today. So catch us next week. We're probably going to have the State of the Film address next week.
Really? Oh, hell
it's
yeah.
the week before Christmas. And
you're right.
We don't want to film on Christmas.
Very fair.
We gotta, take some time off here and there. So next week will be State of the Film Address. We'll have our top 5 films, our honorable, dishonorable mentions.
Exciting.
Talking about the state of the film industry as well.
wait.
Really, I'm excited for it. It's always an auspicious time of the year.
So excited.
Yeah, we have our top 5 list locked, ready
yeah.
to go. Obviously, it may change depending on what movies we see over the break.
Yeah.
But yeah, expect that to happen. I'm excited for that. That's going to be a very fun.
My top 5 is just going to be Wicked 5 times.
Wicked 5 times. You've seen it?
No.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. But I'm happy we're not discussing Wicked because we don't need to give any more attention to that movie.
It has enough.
It's best to just avoid the trends and algorithms and just discuss movies that we have an interest in seeing.
Exactly. Because no one's going to see Y2K. Everyone's seen Wicked.
Yeah, everyone's seen Wicked. It's good to, talk about, the smaller.
The little
guys.
guys. Give the little guys a chance.
Give
them a chance.
Give them a chance. So anyways, guys, that's it for us. Go read a book.
Go read a book.
Go read a book. Some book recommendations down there to end it. And yeah, that's about it. Peace. See you next week for State of the Film Address. Bye.
Bye.
I also remember when I paid you for the jokes, you were shocked that you got paid. I was like, what did you think? I just wanted you to do this for me as a favor?
I mean, that's what Jeff Ross does.